Howdy, everybody. I know it's been a little bit. I've had some technical issues with my computer over this past week and a half, so that's why you didn't get a video last week. I'm sorry. I apologize. Hopefully I got things straightened out and we can just keep going as it is. Let's see. Chapter 6 was the last one, those Rogers boys, that was about my grandfather's two uncles and his brother. This week it's another multi one. So we're at chapter 7. This one, it's actually 3 generations of women. There was a guy added at the end, but I'll explain more about why I did him at the end and why I put him into this grouping. But anyways, I hope everyone had a great week. My week has been a roller coaster with computer issues. I'm just, like I said, I'm hoping that this is all over because computer issues are no fun. They are no fun at all. But anyways, the ones that I'm doing this week, the reasons that I am putting these 3 together is, number 1, not a lot of pictures. And one of them, 2 of them, one of them I have no stories on whatsoever, and the other one, the stories are very limited. So it's, like I said, there's, it just seemed like a good group to group together, instead of having a 10-second video saying, okay, this was Grandma, here's a picture of her, bye. So, anyways, I'm going to quit talking. I'll get into it, and, you'll see me again here in just a few moments. Okay, as I said, there really aren't a whole lot of pictures that I have for the 3 women that I'm going to mention, but Hazel, the first one here, was my grandfather's mother, which would make her my great-grandmother. She died relatively young. She was 27 when she passed away, and it was about a month after her second son was born. The only story that I really have of her is the fact that, of course, after her second child had been born, she had gotten a letter, a mysterious letter, which she read. She walked over to the wood-burning stove, took the top off of it, put the letter into the fire, and told her mother, my great-grandmother, she told her, says, I've got to go, gotta go, Mom. Says, there's something I gotta take care of. Says, well, you watch the boys. And from what I remember hearing, she was gone about 2 weeks. She came back after those 2 weeks, and she was sick. Now, if you didn't notice the date, when the date rolled by, she died in 1918. There were 2 things that happened in 1918. The end of World War II and also the spread of the Spanish flu. So, the supposition is she probably died of the Spanish flu. But she died and no one ever knew where she went. Now, Tafina, I've got a really good story for her. It's a good story, kind of tells a bit of her character and kind of maybe gives you an idea of where my grandfather got some of his character from, because this is the woman who had helped raise him. So let's skip over right now and I'll get you started on the story. Okay, not having a lot of pictures, it makes it hard to tell this particular story because it's a bit long. Tafina Jane had birthed 8 children. 2 of them died in infancy, but the rest of them went to adulthood. So, 8 kids, to us that's a lot. Back then that was about average. But having had that much experience with children, it made her a very good candidate for what is called a midwife. It was something that was really, really popular back 100 years ago. women who had been through the process, that they knew and understood, birthing and how it went. A lot of times they would help doctors deliver babies. A lot of times they pretty much delivered the baby because doctors were very few back then. And it might take a while for them to get somewhere. The next door neighbor or neighbor down the road, they might be the most eligible woman to come over and help with a child, help giving a lady give birth to a child. So midwives were very common, and they were used a lot because, like I said, you didn't have the medical field like you do now. I mean, in the town I live, there's probably 50 doctors. Back then you might have one doctor for an entire county. But anyways, Tafina, having given birth to 8 children, she knew and understood this process, so she was a good candidate to help a young mother through the process. This one particular lady actually was going to give birth to twins. 2. And so Tafina and the doctor both went over there because, one person can't handle 2 twins. It's one of those things. It's hard enough to deal with one, to have 2 little ones there. So she went over. She was going to help the doctor. And they didn't have the medicines like they do now. You went through it all natural. For the ladies out there who have given birth all natural, you're going, I understand that one. For those of us who have not, I don't want to imagine it. But she had given birth to these 2 children all natural. There was no medicines, no pain thing, nothing to help her. She was exhausted by the next morning. And of course, not being able to get up and take care of herself, let alone 2 kids, the doctor had asked Tafina if she could take the twins home with her. Now, she was on horseback. They didn't have cars back then like they do now. You didn't have cars and trucks all over the place. Cars were limited to the very rich people, and most of them stayed in towns. You didn't have someone going out in the countryside in a car and a truck driving around. In fact, they didn't even have trucks back then. Most of their cars were open topped. It was much different than what we're used to. They were happy just to have a motorized, vehicle underneath them, let alone having a top on it. So, like I said, it was something that a lot of people had, and so she wasn't, she didn't have anything like that. She had a horse, or a horse and buggy, but Tafina liked to just go by horse. It was quicker and easier. At least that's what she used to tell my mom and my uncle whenever she would be visiting with them. Riding the horse was just easier than it was to get it all hitched up and drive over there. So, she went by horseback a lot. Well, she did that on this occasion, and she was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And so she got on the horse. And when she got on the horse, the doctor handed her the 2 babies. She had one under each arm. She, was cradling them like you would. Now, horses back then, they were always fed at the same place, and they had this homing instinct. They would go back to where they would get fed at, which, of course, was home. So, with a horse, a lot of times, if you wanted to, you could just, throw the reins across the neck there and just let the horse guide itself, and that's what she did. She had, sorry about that. I hit the computer. She had the reins thrown over the neck of the horse. She had a baby under each arm, and she was letting the horse just walk itself back home, of course, trying not to move too quickly or too violently because, you have 2 newborn babies in your arm. So she was doing the best she could. Midway back, it had been a long night for all of them. Midway back, she started getting drowsy. Anyone who has, that's my cats, by the way. That's July back there that you're seeing. She doesn't know she's on camera. She might get shy as she does. Hi, July. That's July. Anyways, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt the story. But anyways, so she had the babies. She started getting drowsy and falling asleep. When she started nodding off and realizing what was going on, she, of course, tried to wake herself up, but it was too late. She was already slipping out of the saddle. And she realized, I have to protect the babies. And like I said, she had them bundled up in her arms, and she twisted her body so that way her body would take the brunt of the blow. When she fell, it would be her taking it and not the babies. It worked. She fell from the horse, and the babies were safe and protected. The problem was, it broke her hip. Now, remember what I said, if they didn't have things to help a mother through pregnancy, they didn't know and understand the surgeries to help someone with a broken hip. Most of the time, if someone had a broken bone, they would just set it the best they could, like a leg or an arm or something, and then you had to lay in a certain position and let your body heal. And that's what Tafina had to go through. She basically had to let the bones, the hip bones, heal as they would. There was no pins that they could go in and do surgery to set it right. There wasn't a process that they could do where they could move it and set it into a better position. However it healed is how it healed. And it left Tafina with a limp for the rest of her life. But the babies were safe. And that was all that she really was concerned about. That was all that was really the forethought in her mind. If I remember right from the story that my mother and my uncle told me, she actually laid there for a couple of hours because she was in so much pain she couldn't get up, and of course a broken hip, she couldn't get up from that either. It was a little bit before someone came along because, once again, it wasn't like it was a busy road like nowadays where within 15 to 30 minutes you have someone driving up the road. But she lay there for a while. Someone finally came by and they found her and got a buggy and got her and the babies to safety. But like I said, it left her with a limp for the rest of her life. And, at least, like I said, as far as she was concerned, the babies were safe. I tell you this part of the story because here in a few moments at the end, I'm going to tell you another part that involves why I have the gentleman at the end of the video, and I'll talk about him in a few minutes. Okay, as I said, I don't have a lot of stories because, in all truth of the matter, Rebecca Ewing Rogers was a name that just popped up out of nowhere. And a little bit of research I have found out she was actually Tafina's mother. I had thought that was Tafina's grandmother, but no, genealogy says that is her mother. Since I didn't know about her, unfortunately, I don't have any stories to tell. But the gentleman that's fixing to come up, and he's the only gentleman among these 3 generations of women, is Tafina's husband, James Chauncey Rogers. I have a really good story about him, but I had to tell Tafina's story first, so that way, when I got to his part of the story and where he becomes involved, it makes more sense. So actually, this part that's fixing to come up that I'm going to be telling you about is like part 2 to the earlier segment. Which, of course, since I don't have that many pictures, once again, you're going to have to watch me do the Japanese movie and synchronize thing. So, anyways, just give me a moment and we will get started with that. James Chauncey Rogers. What a name. How would you like to grow up with that name on your lips all the time? Anyways, he was, of course, Tafina's husband, and they had been married 50 years at least. I want to say it was like 53 or 54, because he died, I think, a year or two later, 3 years later. I haven't done the math on that, so I'm not completely certain. But anyways, like I said, they had been married pretty much the whole time. He adored his wife. He thought Tafina was the best thing ever. There was a story that my mother and my uncle related to me. Like I said, all these family stories basically came to me through my mother and my uncle. I mean, they're the ones who told me all of these things. James, of course, being a countryman, they owned a pretty good sized ranch in Liberal, Kansas, and as people do, you trade animals. You've had a bull for 1 or 2 seasons, you trade it out, you get another bull, so that way you don't get inbreeding. And that's the worst thing you can have in a farm, is have inbreeding. So he had gotten this bull. It was a pretty raunchy bull. He was not tamed by any stretch of the matter, but he was a good breeding animal, and he got good results out of his calves. So Grandpa was like, "Oh, that's no big deal. We can deal with that." So he got the bull. He brought it home, and of course he'd warned everybody, stay away from the bull, stay away from the bull, stay away from the bull. And for the most part, all the kids stayed away from the bull. If you'll remember in my last segment, I had mentioned that they didn't have cars and trucks back then. At this point, James, or JC, as he was called a lot of times, I've also heard that he's been called John C. as well. People give nicknames all the time. He had gotten a little bit of a wild hair, and he had bought a car. Now, if I remember right, it was a Model T. Tafina did not like this car. She hated the car. She did not like, riding in it. And when she did finally consent to ride in it, she only rode in the back seat because she did not want to be any closer to the front of that thing than possible. But anyways, they had gone somewhere. They had come back in the car. And Tafina, with her broken hip, she had tried getting into the house and realized that there were clothes all over the yard. And she was like, "Oh my word." So she's out there, she's picking up her clothes, and apparently she looked up and she saw the bull. It had gotten out of the pen. Somehow, bulls do that thing. They either jump over the fence or they tear the fence down. However it was, he had gotten out and he was causing havoc. She looked up in time to see the bull, and of course, being a rank, raunchy bull, he had his head down and he was headed towards her. Now, remember I told you that JC adored Tafina. He absolutely loved her, and he heard her scream and looked up, and he saw the bull in the same area that she was in, and with the head down fixing to charge. Tafina couldn't move. Her hip did not allow her to move like she would want to or like she would need to, and she ended up falling. And so she was completely at the mercy of this bull. And JC, he was a long distance away. It's not like he was 20, 30 feet away. He was almost at the barn. And he looked up and he saw his Tafina in danger. I love this story. Okay, I'm getting emotional because I love this story. I know how it ends. He sees his Tafina in danger, and he was like, no way. This isn't going to happen to my woman. He picks up a rock, and somehow from 300 feet away. He launches this rock at the bull, and it hits the bull dead center. The bull came to a sliding stop just feet away from Tafina. It was 300 feet, and he hit the bull so hard right here, it killed the bull instantly. He went down, not a movement after that. I mean, 300. I mean, nowadays we're going, oh yeah, people, they can, do that, no problem. Look at all of our baseball players, they can throw hard and they can throw fast. JC was a farmer. He was a ground man. He dug wells. He dug septic systems. I mean, he did all this stuff. He wasn't someone who knew how to pitch a rock. This wasn't even a ball. It was a rock. And he saved his Tafina's life. That's pretty awesome. I mean, to be able to do that. But I heard that story and I kept thinking, no way. But of course, also too, adrenaline will do a lot to help you. I think he probably had the best adrenaline rush of his life. I know, apparently, for years after that, he would go to that spot and he'd pick up a rock and he would try throwing it. Because I don't think even he believed that he threw it that far. But said he would try throwing it and he'd try throwing it. It would never even get half as far as that. He couldn't get that distance ever again. And, maybe there was a little bit of help of an angel behind that, rock going with it. But whatever it was, he killed that bull. He kept his Tafina safe, and they continued to live. Like I said, they lived at least 50 years together as husband and wife, because some of the pictures I have, that is their 50th anniversary with 4 generations in some of those pictures. But anyways, like I said, it was pretty good. As always, if y'all can remember, please remember to subscribe if you haven't. It's that big red button down there. You just hit that. You hit the top bell notification and you will get every single thing that I post. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more regular now, but you'll get everything I post. Leave the thumbs up, let them know that you like my video. Maybe they'll put me in a little bit more where other people can find me, and other people get to enjoy these stories as well. So remember to hit the like button. If you want to make a comment, hey, enjoyed the story, or that's unbelievable, I can't believe that, or I've heard similar stories from my family, feel free. Also too, if you are listening and watching and thinking, that picture, those people look familiar, we might be related. Because, like I said, Tafina had 6 grown children. She birthed 8, but 6 of them grew up. Well, 5 of them grew up. 2 of them died in birth. 1 of them died as a teenager. So 5 of them had families. So, I've got cousins out there that I've never met. And we might be related. Just drop a line and say, hey, Jennifer, I was watching your story there, and I think that's my grandparents also. That story sounds familiar. I think I remember my grandmother telling me that, or my grandfather, or my uncle, or my aunt. Like I said, we might be related. So let me know, and I would be very happy, to talk to you. We can discuss your side of the family and my side of the family, and reconnect our families again. But anyways, I will let y'all go, and I hope everyone has a great day.